So anyway, there we were in the hat store, and if you see around the brim, there's a little bit of excess blood, and that's because when the cashier said that it was going to be this and this, how many monies, I actually grabbed him by the lapels and forced his head into the counter because full throttle. Oh, we're live.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Well, it's genuinely a shame that one of you made it out of the hat store, specifically you, and I suppose it's a shame two made it out of the hat store if you count the hat.
Oh, but seriously, you wouldn't believe how much Kleenex it takes to get the blood of a broken nose off a cashier's counter, especially a marble top kind of thing. It's gross. It was fantastic. It was beautiful.
I may know a bit more about that than you know. I know. So,
have you ever broken someone's nose in a department store?
And on that note, we're gonna talk about Josh Mandel today.
Yes. Welcome, dear listeners and viewers, and everyone else who's out there in internet land. These are the backseat designers you are currently watching. And before we get into our little spiel, let's just roll the intro, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, boom! We're back. How did this happen? Oh,
I don't know. I was there and now I'm here.
It's
magic of movie editing.
Honestly, this thing is really. I've got the price tag hanging down in front of my face. I'm just gonna
definitely take it off. It's your new hairdo.
Now, speaking of unsightly broken things, my hair just kind of went poof. I suppose it's a result of Adventure Jam. See, it was such a stressful and heinous development time in these past 2 weeks, and that's why we've been off the air for the past week, is because we've been involved in the Adventure Jam. Why don't you tell the dear listeners, just before we get to our topic, what the hell is an Adventure Jam?
It was a really interesting little exercise. There's basically been this Adventure Jam, which is an adventure game-making competition. You get together in teams or on your own and basically create an adventure game in the span of 2 weeks. And such a jam was organized by our good friends Cassie Bender and Stacey Davidson, who just, I guess, decided to do an adventure jam for the fuck of it.
Yeah.
So the both of us participated in that on one project together with some very good friends of ours called Late Last Night. That's the title of the game, not our friends. And you went off on your own simultaneously and did a game of your own called What's in the Safe. And both of them are available. Just Google Adventure Jam, I suppose. It's on gamejolt.com/jam/something. But Google Adventure Jam and it'll take you there. There are, I think, 87 games that were entered into the jam.
80 plus brand spanking new adventure games for aficionados too.
And 80 plus is new 87 anyway, so that works out.
Right. Yeah, sure. I think it was 83 or 84.
A ton of people, known and otherwise, got together and created a shitload of adventure games. So by all means, go play those. Go play the ones we worked on and go play all the other ones.
Indeed so. Excuse me, because during the time of this recording, the votes are still open. So if you play a game and you find it very fanciful, please go and vote for it.
Absolutely. Do that by all means. Vote for us.
Yes, and I thought it was interesting, not to belabor the point, I thought it was interesting for us to participate in a game jam with, whatever crimes against humanity we perpetuated in that sense, because it was a case of us taking our own medicine, so to speak.
Designing an adventure game isn't really an easy exercise, and you very quickly experience why some of the pitfalls are indeed still pitfalls, because they're very easy to resort to when you lack anything else. It's easy to waste the player's time on a pixel hunt if you don't have anything to spend those 5 hours on.
Yeah, the whole pixel hunt thing. I actually, just for the hell of it, let's just. You being the voice of Late Last Night, and I'll be the voice of What's in the Safe. Just quickly name name for me a thing that we've talked about in the past that we have completely denounced and said that every developer should stop doing, that we ended up doing anyway.
I can't recall if we denounced it, but we should have dialogue puzzles. The entirety of the second room that you visit, it's a 3-room game late last night. The entirety of said room is pretty much a dialogue puzzle. And it's a great dialogue puzzle because it's got great dialogue written by the mind behind Pete Tolman, Mr. Gareth Millward. And it somehow wound up working, but it's a slippery slope. I mean, you very quickly, especially if you're not dealing with a talkie, because basically it just becomes a reading exercise.
I quite like dialogue puzzles. Honestly, I just like walking up and talking to people, and this will come into play when we start on our main topic. For my money, for what's in the safe, pixel hunting. Dear God, I completely fell off the wagon on that one because I was using photorealistic backgrounds and I'd squeezed them down to the size of a fucking postage stamp, and yeah, so you can barely see your own inventory, let alone objects on screen. So good on me.
I hope you're proud of yourself, you prick.
Very, very. Oh, you've seen the copy that I wrote on the Game Jam post.
It was basically, I am so sorry.
Like a list of features that I'll go, this sucks and that sucks, and have fun playing, dickhead.
But we're going to talk about an adventure game designer today who is neither of our pretentious, incompetent asses.
That is true.
We're going to talk about one of the unsung heroes, and we're going to blow a fair bit of smoke up his anus. We're going to talk about Josh Mandel.
Good old Josh Mandel. Yes, we are resurrecting a thing from season 1, which is called blowing smoke up someone's ass. And this season, it's going to be Mr. Mandel, the man, the myth, the legend.
Last time we blew smoke up Ron Gilbert's ass, but today Mandel is the victim. And in some ways, he's the polar opposite of Ron Gilbert, because everyone knows what Monkey Island is. I mean, in Denmark, and I don't know if you can relate, but my experience is that if you ask someone, have you played any adventure games, or do you know what an adventure game is, and you begin how to describe it, people will usually say, like Monkey Island. You know, it's the first one. Whereas Josh Mandel, in my opinion, and let this be my little intro skit to this, is the game designer that never really got the honor that he deserves. You know, in the words of Batman, he is the adventure game designer we deserve, but not the one we need right now, or it's the other way around. I don't give a fuck.
I have no idea, but you're absolutely true. You're absolutely true. You're so true.
I am so true.
You're very true. Josh Mandel, for those of you out there in Adventureland who don't know who this fabulous gentleman is, he has had a finger in pretty much every beloved Sierra game that you can think of, at least from the early 90s and onwards to 1995 when he left the company.
If we start with the beginning,
yes.
If you remember Leisure Suit Larry 2, there is this thing in the game called the trite phrase, which is a phrase you can enter into a user interface, and at certain points in the game, Larry will, or another character will say this out loud. You know, not be right. Or some such, but it'll come out on the screen as part of the game dialogue. And there was a competition supposedly around the time Leisure Suit Larry 2 came out, which was about finding the best trite phrase. And the winner was one certain comedian, Josh Mandel, who won with the phrase, "Would you like some fries with that?" I think that's correct. So that's how Josh Mandel enters Sierra and thus adventure game history.
The whole trite phrase thing. Actually, I thought he could have come up with something much better. But I suppose you know, tapping into his dirty mind at such an early stage of his adventure game development career was perhaps anyway. It's a good trite phrase. Fuck it. Yeah. The story behind the judgment
phrase. So yeah,
it is. Yeah, mine were usually a bit more sophomoric than that, but usually along the lines of
fuck off with that, you big pussy.
Yeah, all right. Anyway, the story goes that Josh Mandel was hired by Guru Kasim Khalsa, who was the sole producer of all Sierra adventure games from, let's just say, 1990 and onwards. Probably it's around that time.
Yeah.
He was the producer of every single game that came out of Sierra Online, and that's a hell of a job to carry on your shoulders. So Mr. Mandel was hired on to be his wingman, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the story goes in an interview I read with Josh on Just Adventure, was that at his I think it was the first Christmas party he was at Sierra, he and his old comedy partner, because he used to do like a stand-up comedy duo thing. They gave a performance at this Christmas party, and Ken Williams, after the performance, comes up and says, "You're a funny guy. You should do computer game designs. You should design adventure games." And so his first job was to head up the much maligned SCI remake of King's Quest One.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you knew that, but he went off and said, "Would you guys mind if I rewrote some of the dialogue?" And he went up to Roberta, and Roberta gave him the go-ahead to rewrite some of the dialogue, and he ended up rewriting most of it because, let's face it, King's Quest dialogue not always so much fun.
And in general, Roberta Williams writing not so much fun, but Josh Mandel writing fun.
Very good.
Very fun.
We are going to get into this in a big way, because if there's one thing, Josh Mandel deserves a whole heaping amount of the finest Cuban smoke you can find up his rectum. It is his writing talents.
It absolutely is. Josh Mandel is, to put it not very bluntly, the funniest fucker you've ever seen on the adventure game scene. And I made it rhyme. You know, if we were in the 90s, I would have made a rap out of that, the Sierra rap.
Sorry, I won't do that again. So from that point on, even though he was the producer or associate producer, whatever the fuck you call it, at Sierra, he basically got his little mitts into pretty much every adventure game project that came out in the early to mid 90s out of Sierra Online. That means
what he did off the top of my head during that time was he wrote a lot of stuff for the much derided but actually quite funny Space Quest 1 VGA remake, which is derided because it's unauthorized, but I suppose you could say that the funny stuff in it was written by Josh. He's thanked in the credits of Gabriel Knight, and he's credited as a writer on a shit ton of games, basically. So he was very much part of the Sierra DNA by that time.
Yes, and by unauthorized remake, of course, it was made by Sierra Online, but there's this famous story that the two guys from Andromeda did not like Space Quest 1 VGA at all, which is not the fault of Josh Mandel, nor is it the fault of Ken Allen, who did a fabulous score for it. It is simply the fault of low production values and kind of shitty graphics.
And ethical games journalism.
Boom! I am going to put my hat back on. Yes.
Oh yeah, so, I won the hat. I won the hat. I reject my winnings. Please take it off.
You sure?
So anyway, to partake in these shenanigans.
So pretty much, whenever you have quote-unquote extraneous text or background information and such in a Sierra game, you can be pretty damn sure that Josh Mandel had a hand in it, because if there's one thing that dude is good at, it's giving player feedback. We've talked a lot about not having enough objects to click on, and we've talked a lot about the default messages. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. You can't do that here, and such like. Josh Mandel's mode of
click events, basically.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I see over here on the IRC channel on which I'm present, as are you. Maria Chicago wrote, so we have Josh to thank for "You Were Warned, Ogre and Ogre" again. And I don't recall if it's obviously from King's Quest. I believe it's a death message. It sounds like one, and that's the kind of shit the guy will do. He will take stuff that is not ordinarily funny and twist it. In many ways he's like Scott Murphy, but I suppose a tad less acidic. And in no way that is in no way a criticism of Scott. But Josh is kind of like the light-hearted version of Scott Murphy. Scott Murphy with just a pinch less cynicism.
Yeah, I'll get into that. My first of all, regarding click events, Josh is a feedback junkie. He says in the interview, whenever you click on something, regardless of what icon you're using or what inventory item you want to use, he writes specific messages for each of them. It's not just a "you can't do that, I don't want to do that." He comes up with some brilliant stuff.
Yeah, if we jump ahead in time a bit, Space Quest 6, which was designed by him, I suppose we'll get to the full Monty of that story in a couple of minutes. But there is the Ascendo pad, the elevator room in that game, and it's just one room, and it's just crammed with a shitload of funny click events. Many Space Quest fans and players to this date are still pointing out that this is the one most entertaining room in the game.
It is, and it's just a fucking elevator. Oh, and Miraka says that
and nothing goes on during that elevator ride. You're just standing there, but all the stuff you can look at and interact with, it just blows my mind, really. Josh Mandel could make an NRA meeting funny, and not unintentionally. he could make it balls to the walls funny.
he could make the Bible funny. America says that the Ogre and Ogre Again line is from King's Quest 1 VGA. I'll take his word for it.
I suspected as much.
And you said that that Josh Mandel is kind of the lighthearted version of Scott Murphy. I can pinpoint one very clear difference between the two writing styles, because for the most part they do have kind of a similar sense of humor. I feel, but Josh loves puns.
He does, and Scott does not love puns.
Scott hates puns, yes. Which is an interesting mesh, because if we jump ahead to, or I suppose jump back to Space Quest 4, the one thing that most people really truly love, if they have to point to one thing that they truly love about that game, it's the bargain bin in the software store in the Space Quest 10.
I'm by the way, I'm not doing anything suspect over here. I am petting a cat.
Me too. Would you like to see?
How they want to be on the show.
Oh no, he left.
He'll get some airtime at some point, little guy.
Anyway, the bargain bin in Space Quest 4 was not written by Scott Murphy or Mark Crow, for that matter. It was written by Josh Mandel. So we have Josh Mandel to thank for such classics as Boom
by Brian Artie.
Exactly, and Sim Sim. And the best part of it is that if you pick up the box that says "Where the hell is Jaime Lipschitz?" and "Who cares anyway?" that's actually him on the box cover.
I didn't know that, actually.
That is Josh Mandel.
I don't consider myself a king of trivia by any means, but I didn't know that. It sounded like something I would have known.
I think it was in the Space Quest FAQ at some point. It's not the only time that Josh Mandel kind of crept into, like physically into games as well. There's King's Quest 5, I think, where not only is he the voice of King Graham in what he has described as his worst voiceover work ever.
And he's a very good actor, incidentally. Let's get that out of the way. Another thought for us. We worked on this little thing way back when called Serena, and Josh Mandel played the main character in it. And I'm not going to talk about it apart from that, but he was absolutely cracking in it. And we were both writers on it, and I think both of us wrote shit where we looked at the pages and just thought, how could someone make this work? Josh Mandel, right? Honest to God, is the actor that makes it all work. It's amazing.
It is.
So he's really good at that, but not in King's Quest 5 because it's King's Quest fucking 5. And King's Quest 5 can serve a piece of plywood up my fucking ass.
Man, you just take all the good lines, don't you? I completely subscribe to whatever you just said. Sorry. But he also crept in front of the camera, so to speak, because I think is it King's Quest 5 or 6 where this huge burly guy with his bare chest and these kind of MC Hammer pants, he's just standing around being the bodyguard of someone.
What you're describing is Abdul Al-Hasred's Genie in King's Quest 6, which is actually a good game. It's a brilliant game designed by Jane Jensen, but we're not blowing smoke up her ass just yet.
But the dude with the bare chest, that is Josh Mandel as well.
And he's photogenic too. He's a great actor. He's a great writer. His bare chest is photogenic.
Even when painted over in 256 color VGA deluxe paint stuff, it's.
But at this point, our viewers certainly shouldn't question that this guy has everything going for him.
Pretty much every game. Oh, Jones in the Fast Lane. I have to bring up Jones in the Fast Lane because. Yeah. It's one of those obscure games that I suppose the Square Waves FM guys are sort of bringing back into vogue, because every time they talk about Jones in the Fast Lane, they just get all mushy. And I played a shit ton of Jones in the Fast Lane with my wife too, which is tons of fun. And all those little I was just gonna say stupid messages. They are stupid messages because they have no bearing on the game whatsoever. It's just a board game. But every time you enter a store or the university or the whatever, this little message pops up where the clerk greets you in some asinine fashion, and that was all Josh Mandel. And I think he even designed some of the game as well.
He probably did, and I suppose that's a nice springboard over to the next part, which is Josh Mandel as a designer. Because now we've covered what the guy did at the beginning and middle of his tenure at Sierra, which is that he had his fingers into basically every game they did at that point, and certainly
pretty much, and uncredited as well. That's the point. He wrote a bunch of shit, but he wasn't credited as a writer for most of it.
That's true. But as a designer, I would again argue that he never really got the honor he deserves, because his major jewel in the crown, I would say, is Space Quest 6, and what ultimately happened was that he was stripped of most of his credit there. He basically designed this whole game, but at some point he was relieved of it. That's as diplomatic as I can say. He was fucking booted off that game, and Scott Murphy, one of the real guys from Andromeda, I suppose, cynic would argue, was brought in to wrap it up. And Sierra credited him as the designer of it, even though what he did, he admits himself, was insanely, an insanely small amount of work.
It's kind of what happened. First of all, Josh Mandel left. He wasn't kicked off the team. He
left, but it was not exactly on amicable terms.
Oh no. There was a contract dispute. There was something about him and producer Mark Hood, who they were going to go off to Seattle, which was a new Sierra branch at the time, and they had it in a contract that he was going to design. Josh was going to design a game, and Mark was going to be the producer. And suddenly, Mark Hood was just transferred off to a different department, and Josh just looked at his contract and went, "Fuck, it's in writing here." And he goes up to the department head and goes, "You bastard! I've got a contract here that says so and so." And the guy behind the desk, some fucking suit that they brought in, because this was the corporate era of Sierra back in 1995 or 1994 or whatever. He just said, "Well, that's business," and Josh just went, "Fuck you, buddy," and just up and quit. So that's really what happened.
Good man, that's the story of Josh in the Hood.
Yes, exactly. He just went full on George Costanza. You are a laughingstock. You. But the whole Scott Murphy thing with Space Quest 6, Scott was kind of brought in. They did work on the game together. But Scott was in more of a creative consultant capacity at the time. They did. Josh worked on the story. And designed most of the game, and Scott was sort of helping out, fleshing out the story. He just come off Police Quest 4, and which ran long, and eventually, like you said, once Josh went "fuck you, buddy" and walked out the door, Scott is just left with this design document, and he's left with this game that he has to complete, and that's what happens. Space Quest 6 would have been a fantastic game had management not been the kind of sooty assholes that they were at the time.
And actually, in my opinion, it depending on what you play it for, it is a fantastic game. If you play it to be entertained, then in my opinion, it is hands down the funniest Space Quest game. And I say that with absolutely no animosity meant towards Mark or Scott, who are dear friends of mine. But to someone like me who got into the game fairly late, like the early 2000s, Josh Mandel's humor was just more immediate. You know, Scott Murphy delivers snark in a way where you don't really feel the burn till after a while, whereas Josh Mandel's humor is just I suppose you could compare them to you know, if Scott Murphy is Groucho Marx, who's got all the snappy lines, and you don't really know you've been insulted till way after you think, what did this guy say to me? Josh Mandel is Harpo or Chico, you know, the guy who's just immediately funny, the guy who'll enter the room and you'll just laugh. No, his humor was more immediate when there was still a language barrier present for me. So.
Ah, yes. A language barrier that we have both suffered through.
I speak good English now.
Yes, me too. Me very good English. Let me show you my translating hat. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I will go on record, as I have done over at SpaceQuest.net, and say that the humor in Space Quest 6 was very different from the other Space Quest games, particularly Space Quest 1 through 4, that the two guys from Andromeda did together.
It was more immediate, and Space Quest 5 had featured a lot of slapstick.
Yeah, it was more visually oriented. And
yeah, it was, because, you know, it makes sense because Mark designed it, and Mark is obviously very visual, being the artist rather than the writer or speaker that Scott is. Space Quest 6 is, you know, it's all about slapstick, it's all about puns, it's all about in-jokes, references. It is in many ways the Monkey Island of the Space Quest series.
I suppose. And one thing that really struck me, and one thing that kind of leads nicely into another segue, is that it made the narrator argue with the protagonist. In previous Space Quest games, Roger Wilco, our protagonist, was completely unaware that there was even a narrator present, and suddenly in Space Quest 6, he's very aware that he is a character in a computer game, and there's a lot of fourth wall breaking.
The narrator would directly address Roger, whereas he would just say "you" in Space Quest 4, which is very akin to how the player was addressed in Space Quests 1 through 3.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole breaking of fourth wall, the whole self-awareness of being in the computer game, really, I suppose. I don't know if it stems from, but it was very, very apparent when Josh designed Freddy Farkas, Frontier Pharmacist, with the venerable Al Lowe.
Who got most of the credit, I believe. I must confess, I haven't played it, but
I have.
There is another great example of Josh Mandel being screwed over, and it's just so fucking sad because the guy is just walking talent. And on top of that, he is one of the nicest guys I have ever had the joy of talking to, and hell, I suppose, working with, even though I didn't work directly with him on Serena. But he's just such a fucking nice guy. Just, why are you fucking this poor man over? I'm really so infuriated. I spat on my screen. That's how infuriated I
am. He is. He never really got the recognition he deserves for being an incredibly creative and funny guy. And what really blows me away is, after all this time, after all these credits that we haven't even gotten through them all, today in this resurgence of adventure games and such, he is the person who's most likely to jump on a fan project. He will gladly communicate with fans. He will not only communicate with fans, but he will actually work with them. Like you said, we had him voice the main character on Serena. I know he's been working with Jess Morissette, Decaf Jedi, who was the project lead on our adventure game Jam. They've been sort of working on this little secret project that I'm not at liberty to discuss, but he's been.
I know of it, and I could reveal all of it if I was an asshole. I know the project you speak of, and it is indeed pretty cool.
The best thing I can think of, or the best example I can think of, is that after Sierra canceled Space Quest 7, fans went off and said, "Fuck it, we'll do our own Space Quest 7." And Josh Mandel very courteously went, "All right, I'll help you guys write some click events and do some stuff." And he ended up being kind of roped into lead designer or lead writer at least. You know,
he actually physically met up with a lot of fans around that time. He made up with with Colin Davis, I think, who was running the project, and JC, whose real name, I'm sorry to say, eludes me, but she also worked on it as a writer. And I know that those guys would meet up in New York and just brainstorm.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the kind of guy he is, you know, all in it for the love of the game, you know, all in it for the love of fun.
You can really tell he loves the genre, and he loves he's very particular about the things that he wants out of a game. For one, he wants the you know, the feedback. He wants a real world to explore. He's not into you know, limited click events. And I'm pretty sure, I haven't asked him directly, but I'm pretty sure that if you were to mention, you know, the Torrance passage, Phantasmagoria kind of single click interface, he would just go, nah, not really.
He'd hate it. He'd absolutely hate it.
But here's a guy who has been sort of roped in without actually being asked into being lead writer, where he just, you know, offered a helping hand, and he was just swept into this design team, and he just went, "All right, sure, I can work out a game design with you guys, and for, you know, no compensation, no money. The game was going to be free. In fact, that was a part of the reason why it died, was because many people worked on it that didn't want you know, Sierra to suddenly usurp the rights and start selling it and, you know, basically have them work for free." So yeah, that's the kind of guy he is, and to this day, when you ask him to you know, participate in some stupid little thing that you've got going, like I did the Space Quest Historian video series, for instance, not only did he agree to show up on camera and talk about Space Quest 7, he also stuck chicken feathers in his mouth for my benefit.
Yeah, he had a lot of fun with it. He also did, you know, this whole little comedy shtick, and while we're on that, he also voiced King Graham yet again in the King's Quest 1 and 2 remakes done by now Himalaya Studios, but back then, respectively, Tierra and Anonymous Game Developers Interactive. And they did
1, 2, and 3
incredible remakes of yeah, they did a third one too. I think he's still in the third one, but it's more of a cameo role because King Graham only shows up by the end of it. And, you know, spoiler.
Okay. Oh fuck! It's King's Quest. Who gives a shit?
30-year-old fucking spoiler. Sorry. But yeah, he voices the protagonist in 1 and 2, King Graham, once again.
All right. And after leaving Sierra, he you know, still wanted to do adventure games, even though they were being progressively harder to sell because, you know, we've covered this and did So and Such kill the adventure game genre, but there still were adventure games being made, and he ended up at Legend Entertainment. Who were kind of, you know, if we've been talking about if Sierra came off the you know, tradition of Infocom text adventures and such, Legend were still happily, you know, mining that for all it's worth. I mean, most of the most Legend Entertainment games that I've played, Companions of Xanth and Eric the Unready, which apparently is one of Josh's favorite games, by the way. They are really just text adventures with you know, a point and click interface. Even Eric the Unready has this tiny little graphic screen in the top right corner, and everything else is just verbs and objects and this huge text window at the bottom.
Nice.
It's weird. So anyway, the game he ended up doing for Legend was a graphic point and click adventure game called Callahan's Crosstime Saloon.
Yeah.
And once again, he ended up getting kind of shafted. It's kind of like
this is a recurring thing. And, you know, Josh, you need to be better to just, you know, you need to be better at verbal or physical abuse, man. I mean, don't let this happen to you every fucking time, you know. He's been fucked more time than the most used prostitute in Copenhagen.
I knew you were gonna say something like that. Yeah, this dude has been shafted more times than me playing Quake 3.
No Vaseline.
Yes, right up the. I mean, and the thing they did to him with Callahan's Crosstime Saloon was, even though he got the credit for the game that he was supposed to get, whatever asinine seventh circle of hell assholes worked in marketing at Legend apparently marketed the game as a Western, even though it is a science fiction anthology kind of game. It has nothing to do. They just looked at the title. It has Saloon in it. It must be a Western. Out it goes. So yeah, brilliant job, guys.
Yeah, poor Josh Mandel.
Anyway, I watched a Let's Play of Callahan's Cross. I haven't actually played the game.
No, neither have I. And I suppose there is some sense of poetic irony in the fact that we're discussing Josh Mandel being shafted, and there are so many games that none of us have played.
And the funny thing is, our good friend Natalie Juhasz Rizulka on Twitter, she keeps going on about how Callahan's Crosstime Saloon has the best adventure game interface, the best, Jerry, the best of any adventure. I would say second best probably, because Lisa Suit Larry 7, but Callahan's Crosstime Saloon has this context-sensitive click thingy, where if you click on an item, it'll pop up the usual kind of things you can do with it. Look at it, pick it up, fondle it, something. And every time you sort of learn new vocabulary, it will add that a list of new verbs to these objects, and there is an individual message for each of them. Not only that, an extensively verbose and very, very funny and very, very pun-oriented message for everything you can do. In the Let's Play I watched, I haven't watched the entire game. I'm the king of research.
Absolutely. I didn't bother to do no research. I just thought, I love the guy. I can spend like 3/4 of an hour to an hour talking about how much I love this guy.
Yeah, me too.
I've done that before.
Well, sure. But anyway, the thing I was going to say was, in the Let's Play that I watched, at some point you arrive on an airstrip, and you've just been in a plane that's crashed, and you wander onto this Brazilian airstrip where no one is being very friendly. In fact, every time you try and click on something, there's a jeep that you can try and get away in. There's a plane you can try and get away in. There's a guard in a tower somewhere. Every time you click on him, the game flat out tells you, you walk up to the guard, tap him on the shoulder, he shoots you in the face, and that's what would have happened if you'd been stupid enough to do that. Now back to reality. That's a great way of just going, in a Sierra game, we would have killed you, but we're not going to do that here. So just stop being an idiot and get on with the game.
Can't get over.
It's just brilliant. Now, interestingly, when I looked the dude up on Moby Games, and you did as well, we ran across some credits for Josh Mandel that we had no idea he'd had a hand in.
Yeah, so supposedly he wrote a bunch of stuff for the Jagged Alliance games, and I haven't actually played those, but that's very, very un-Josh Mandel. I suppose that I think the Jagged Alliance games are supposed to be partly funny. I think they do have humor in them. As far as I can tell, they're kind of like turn-based strategy. I suppose Fallout with a bunch of commandos wouldn't be too far off as a parallel.
I have no idea.
He did some writing on those. Not, as far as I know, design. He just wrote shit for him.
Yeah, and he did the same for a game called Insecticide, which I've never heard of either. And he worked at Sega for a time, and actually did script editing on Sonic Adventure, which kind of blows my mind.
I have that game lying around, I think, but I haven't actually played it. I'm more of a Sonic 1, 2, and 3 guy. The old 8-bit and 16-bit. Sonic Adventure is unknown to me.
I have no idea either. I was always a Nintendo guy as a kid, Nintendo kid. And he worked on something called Leisure Suit Larry Reloaded.
That was actually very memorable, because it had a low on it, and then it had Josh Mandel, and then it had, oh shit.
No, wait, what was that?
I can't for the life of me remember who else worked on it. There were a bunch of our friends, Serena Nelson and Justin
Tom King,
McNimanen, and Tom King, and all great guys. I can't remember that last guy. Well,
no, he's kind of unmemorable.
He's not important.
No, he's not. He was just some dude off in the corner who you know had a big mouth as far as I can remember, but that's
Just one
really
guy off the street. I can. There was
uh,
something funny about his name. It was as if it rhymed with L. Low. And it wasn't
no.
about Crow. I don't remember. I'm sorry to say.
Nah.
I
But
don't.
He's no one important. Let's not waste any time on that. The good thing about Lisa Suit Larry Reloaded is that of course it was a yet another remake of Lisa Suit Larry 1, which had already been remade once with I'm pretty sure at least the writing input of Josh. You know, back when Sierra redid it in VGA. Um,
He had a
and
chance
now,
to up the ante on the remake of the remake, though, because
yes, he
that's
did.
what it is. It's a remake of Leisure Suit Larry 1 BGA. It's not really a remake of the AGI version. But yet, Josh Mandel put some really funny fucking stuff in it, and for a while, he actually got his credit. He was he. I get the impression that Al Lowe was there as a he was there in a consultant type role, and he was there as the father of Leisure Suit Larry to kind of rope this Kickstarter in. But
Yeah.
Josh Mandel did the lion's work as far as the writing goes, and he got a lot of credit for that, and he got a lot of respect for it, and it has enabled him to work with the two guys from Andromeda yet again on
Hey!
this venture.
That is true. Josh Mandel is doing. Actually, I'm having the pleasure of collaborating with him on a bit of extraneous. I keep calling it extraneous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stuff that's not really necessary to complete the game, but it's just there to add flavor. And
And again, as we've established, Josh is all about immersion. He'll take the most boring object in the landscape you're currently visiting as a player, and he'll find a way to make it funny, to make it stand out.
or at least make it interesting. At least tell a little anecdote about it, which is what he does in the Ascendo pad and the
Yeah,
Space for 60, the
he'll
elevator.
take every single pixel and milk it for what it's worth, in an extremely positive way.
Yep. Um, and what else? Oh, I would be remiss not to mention this because over on Facebook, I do have the good fortune of somehow haven't gotten on his wife's good side. And so,
But that is also a plus because he has a very, very funny wife. Laura Mandel is just, it's a pleasure to read what she'll write sometimes. And Josh himself is not on Facebook currently, mainly, I think, because of a fallout with that unimportant guy that we don't really
that dude.
remember.
Oh, yeah.
He is on Twitter and he'll pop in once in a while, but his wife takes care of Facebook.
Yes, she does. And the reason why I bring her up is because together they managed to produce an adorable little curly-haired child called Natalie, who, and this is really going to touch some heartstrings out there. She wants to grow up to be a game designer just like Daddy. And
Well, maybe one day we will do backseat geriatrics, and we will blow smoke up the ass of Josh Mandel's daughter.
stunned silence.
Yeah. Not in a literal sense, by all means. Good God, I'm talking metaphors here. And I know, trusting our luck, this is the exact moment where Josh and Laura tune in, and they're just collectively in front of the family computer.
I even told Laura, don't let Natalie listen to the show because we swear a lot, and she goes, nah, she knows most of the words anyway. So right now, Laura has some explaining to do.
I think Josh is Jewish, isn't she? So maybe they'll put this on at her bar mitzvah or something when
I think they're
when she's come of age and can deal with the swearing.
they're this interesting kind of atheist Jews, so they'll make fun of their heritage, but I don't think the kid's gonna have a bar mitzvah.
I might strike up some controversy here, but I mean, I harbor no ill will. But many of my favorite comedians are actually Jewish. There's just this Jewish sense of humor. And I've mentioned the Marx Brothers, but in my view, what Josh does is very much in line with that historical kind of Jewish humor, if you will.
I actually agree. There
Kind
is
of brought that zany brand of anarchy into the mix at Sierra.
and sarcasm and
Yeah,
kind of a self-referential, self-deprecating type, which is also one of the reasons why I love Seinfeld, which is also an incredibly Jewish show when you look
yeah,
at it.
yeah, that's true.
Um, but yeah, so really, I'm just looking forward to playing Natalie Mandel's first game. Someone should get her an adventure game studio tutor. I told Laura on Facebook, and someone really should sit her down and go, this is an object, this is an inventory, this is a script
Why
line.
would you need to?
Go have fun.
Yeah, she could learn from the best because her daddy's been there.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a
And
better mentor than most of us will ever have.
And over on the IRC channel, Amir Akako is warning everyone not to look at 3D Sonic or Sonic Adventure,
Yeah.
which is apparently a completely
Yeah,
terrible
it's
game.
shit. Yeah, but Sega have made a lot of shit. They did. If we digress a bit, they were also partly responsible for the mess that was Aliens Colonial Marines, which I am told is just a piece of buggy shit. And that is quite an achievement because Aliens is one of my favorite movies of all time. I actually watched this in the cinema with a friend from work recently, and it's still fucking brilliant. How you can take something like that and fuck it up is just beyond me. You have to really try.
There are a ton of Alien games, and most of them
Yeah.
stuck ass to until that recent one, the survival horror thing came out, which I'm told is quite
Alien
good.
Isolation, which I am playing, which is fucking difficult, but it's just fucking brilliant.
But
Yeah.
the only good Alien game up until that one was apparently one for the Sega Jaguar. I think it was no, it wasn't even a Sega Jaguar. Wasn't it just called the Jaguar? I don't know.
I think the Jaguar console wasn't Sega, but it was one of those obscure consoles like
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It wasn't Sega.
Or the What's His Face or.
But yeah, why are we talking about aliens all of a sudden?
I have no idea why we're talking about consoles.
I don't know. Because
junior high, this is digression university.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not really sure where to go from here because, as far as I know, the only projects that Josh are involved with are some things that we either can't talk about or that we Atari Jaguar. Thank you very much, Amira.
We've covered Space Venture, and then there's that secret project that you're also kind of involved in with some other guy. Not the guy we don't remember. A very memorable guy, a very very nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've kind of been around the block, but this show was all about giving Josh Mandel the credit that he sorely deserves.
Exactly, you're absolutely right.
We've done that. I think we've to recap a bit. We've been talking about what did Josh Mandel bring to the table at Sierra and in his subsequent endeavors, and what kind of humor does he have? What kind of person is he? And Josh Mandel is the legendary game designer that never was. He is. I'm sorry, but Josh Mandel is everything I wish Tim Schafer was.
Oh, let's not go there. But history has caught up with Mr. Mandel in a sense because owing to his incredible dedication to the adventure game community, if there's one thing we can truly laud him for beyond his incredible comedic talent, it is his ability to communicate on the level with fans and be genuinely approachable and fun to be around and fun to interact with. Always good spirited.
Something we didn't have back in the days of corporate Sierra with Guruga Singh Khalsa spearheading shit. But you do now, the indie scene is very much alive, and Josh fits right into that mold where being an adventure game designer is just another job for him, or being an actor is just another job for him. Like Scott Murphy, Mark Crow, Al Lowe, he is not stuck up in any sense. And the Coles, obviously, Ron Gilbert too, and Gary Winnick. All these people are just they're just basically walking around among fans. right now. And
exactly. But if you were to point,
we can tell that he digs it.
yeah. But if you were to point at one guy who was truly more than just approachable, but in fact he seems honored to be in the pantheon of adventure game designers, ostensibly because he was a fan of adventure games before he even got near the programming side or the development side of one. He seems to be genuinely thrilled by the idea of people wanting to talk to him about adventure games, which I suppose for every person that's run up to Ron Gilbert and gone, "You fight like a cow," eventually that must get tiring. But
Yeah.
For Josh, you can just knock on his virtual door at pretty much any time.
Yeah.
Except when he gets carted off to the hospital because his spine told him to go fuck himself.
Yeah, he's, and we should probably mention this. He's been hospitalized, and I'm told it's not serious and that he is recovering. But yeah, he had a bit of a scare with back pains, and you know, I suppose it goes to his credit that he actually asked us, should I get up from bed to participate in this in some manner? And we went, no, you don't want to do that.
In this show, he wanted to actually not. I don't know if he meant to actually be on the show or just watch it, but you know. He
would have been welcome in any case, and I hope that he watches this, and hopefully at this point he hasn't turned it off, and
after you threatening to blow smoke up his daughter's ass, you know, he might.
Yeah, I just hope he you know, realizes how much we like the guy and his work. So
yes, exactly. If someone truly deserves to have his you know, metaphorical star on the you know, Hollywood sidewalk of adventure games, Josh Mandel deserves it as much as any Ron Gilbert or Tim Schafer or guy from Andromeda or Roberta Williams for that fucking matter, or Jay.
Actually, just, you know, take Roberta's star off the wall.
Yeah, just get it out of the way. Just put Josh's in there. We'll put in a nice little flower. Leave him a card.
Take the homemade star that guy put there, and
yeah, just wipe it clean off,
and put another star in there for Josh, just for the fuck of it.
Yeah, the other dude can look up his own star. So I don't know. Let's just say, Josh, dude, you've overcome obscurity. Some of it, you know, just because you love the adventure game genre and didn't want to be credited or had a different role. That was during the Sierra years, to the point where you got your own game and got shafted. Then you got your other own game. Then you had to split the credit with Al Lowe, which is good. Then you got another game, and then you got shafted all over again. But you're basically
shaft.
Yeah. But your perseverance and your dedication to the community is commendable, and it is fantastic to be in a and to be able to communicate with someone who is so approachable and so likable and so fucking funny. So, yeah.
Because you never stop being approachable, likable, and funny. So, hats off to that. I can only hope that if I ever make it into the game industry in some capacity, I'll wind up being like that. Yeah. But we both know I won't. I'll be a surly old miser. But I'll be a surly old miser who wishes he was Josh Mandel.
There you go. Exactly. Keep writing those funny messages, kid. And just, you know, live long enough to get your own game, your own credit, and not have it been fucked over by management or marketing or that guy whose name we can't remember.
No, that guy.
Yeah. So,
I'm not even sure it was a guy.
No.
It might have been some kind of entity whose shape was vaguely human or animalistic, I guess. I'm getting the X-Men from here.
Oh god. So anyway, you can follow us on backseatdesigners.com.
We have that guy. We don't want that guy following us because we know he does that. Backseatdesigners.com is the hub of everything. In case you haven't signed off yet.
Right. You can follow us on Twitter at BSDesigners. You can follow us on YouTube, where you're probably watching this, if you are watching it, over at youtube.com/backseatdesigners. Or if you're currently listening to this, you're probably doing it from backseatdesigners.podbean.com, where you can subscribe with iTunes and Stitcher and whatever Android RSS thingy you have going on. And I will curveball this one to you. We have a thing where you can give us money.
Oh yes, we have a Patreon. At patreon.com/backseatdesigners. I think I always forget the URL, which is kind of shitty if you're trying to rope people into giving you money.
It was the right URL, by the way.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, you've got the URL, give us money. And one guy who gave us money, whom we are contractually obliged to mention at the end of the show, is Mr. Steven Alexander of Infamous Quest's fame. Infamous Quests did Quest for Infamy, and I think their Kickstarter has ended, hasn't it? They did a Kickstarter.
I'm not sure. It's surpassed.
And thank God it's founded. They're doing a Kickstarter for, I think, two or three new adventure games.
Two to begin with, and the third was a stretch goal, which has now also been funded. So, so good on Steve. We salute you, Master.
Thank you for giving us money. We'll pay you back. You're making some really good games. So
I mean, you're no Josh Mandel, but you're still a fine guy.
You're Steven Alexander, and that is good enough. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. And also, if you don't want to give us money in lieu of Patreon pledges, I am also accepting hats. Hats you don't want.
I thought you were about to say something completely different. You know, you really blew it. I am also accepting sexual favors.
You know, I'm actually accepting arguments against ethics in games journalism.
Boom!
Boom!
So sexual favors.
For sexual favors, obviously.
But all that stuff.
On that note, I doff my fabulous summer hats to you, dear listeners and/or viewers, and I hope you will join us next week, where we tell people who are much smarter than us how to do their job.
Indeed. See ya.
See ya.
No more for today.